The hall inside the Global Leadership Summit was buzzing with diplomats, advisors, and the usual parade of political heirs who walked around as if they already ruled the world. But when Barron Trump entered, tall, confident, wearing the inherited arrogance of a dynasty, every camera swung toward him. He enjoyed it. He always did. Across the room, Ibrahim Traoré stood calmly, speaking with delegates from West Africa. No flashiness, no entourage, no theatrics, just presence. Real presence. The kind that didn't need a spotlight to be noticed. Barron, bored and irritated that someone else commanded attention without even trying, strolled toward Traoré like a prince approaching a subject. "So you're the famous African soldier everyone keeps talking about," Barron said, wearing his signature smirk. "Funny. You look smaller in person." Traoré slowly turned his head, meeting the boy's gaze with the calm of a man who had seen war before Barron had even seen adulthood. "And you look exactly your size," he replied, tone neutral, eyes sharp. Barron scoffed. "Relax. I'm just saying, you're beneath me. Literally and politically." Several diplomats nearby froze. Others pretended not to listen, though their ears were wide open. No one dared intervene. No one dared look away. Traoré leaned in just enough for his voice to cut cleanly through the room. "If I'm beneath you," he said softly, "then why are you looking up?" The smirk on Barron's face evaporated so fast it was almost comedic. Cameras clicked. Advisors stiffened. A few delegates bit their lips to stop a laugh. Barron wasn't used to being outmaneuvered, especially not by someone he had just tried to belittle. Traoré didn't wait for a response. He simply straightened his uniform and added, "Respect is not inherited. It is earned, something you will understand one day, if you ever step outside your father's shadow." Barron's jaw tightened. His confidence wavered. For the first time that evening, he looked like a child playing in an arena meant for warriors. Traoré's words had sliced through the air with surgical precision, and everyone felt it. Barron's smirk didn't fade, if anything, it sharpened, pulling the entire room into the arrogance he wore like a designer jacket. Cameras flashed, reporters leaned in, waiting to see whether the young heir to American power could belittle a man who had spent his life fighting for something bigger than himself. "So tell me, Captain," Barron said, crossing his arms with exaggerated confidence, "do you really think men like you can stand on the same stage as the Trumps?" Traoré didn't blink. He observed Barron the way a seasoned commander studies an inexperienced recruit, quiet, patient, unbothered. "I don't measure myself by stages," he replied calmly. "Only by purpose." Barron let out a soft, mocking laugh. "Purpose? My father built empires." "What did you build?" Traoré leaned forward slightly, his voice low and controlled. "A nation that doesn't bow. A future that doesn't ask permission. And a people who don't mistake privilege for strength." The smirk slipped, just for a second. Barron straightened his back, trying to recover the power he felt slipping from his grip. "You talk big for someone from wherever," he said, waving his hand dismissively, as if Burkina Faso were an afterthought. But Traoré didn't react, not with anger, not with offense. Instead, he smiled. "If you truly believed I'm beneath you," he said softly, "you wouldn't feel the need to look down. You look up because you sense what's coming." A ripple swept through the room, soft murmurs, raised eyebrows, a collective "did he just say that?" Barron's composure cracked. He opened his mouth to respond, but Traoré continued. "You stand on your father's name. I stand on my people's hope. One is inherited. One is earned. And only one of them survives when the cameras turn off." Barron swallowed, visibly rattled. His youthful bravado, so carefully constructed, was dissolving under the weight of Traoré's calm certainty. Traoré leaned back, hands steady, eyes unshaken. "So tell me again," he said, voice steady as iron, "why are you looking up?" Barron froze for a second, taken aback that Traoré had responded so quickly, and so sharply. The smug grin on his face flickered, just enough for the cameras to catch it. A few reporters shifted forward in their seats, realizing this exchange was no longer a joke but a moment that would explode across the internet. Traoré didn't raise his voice. He didn't posture. He simply stood, and the room shifted with him. You say I'm beneath you, Traoré continued, but every time Africa stands up, your world trembles. Barron's smirk returned, but thinner now. You're overreacting, he muttered. I was just making a point. And I'm correcting it, Traoré replied calmly. Arrogance is loudest when it has accomplished the least. A quiet gasp spread through the hall. Barron tried to recover. You think talking tough makes you powerful? You think any of this matters? Traoré stepped closer. Not threatening, but unmistakably commanding. Power isn't in volume, Barron. It's in impact. And right now, a boy with a microphone is trying to belittle a continent that rebuilt itself from ashes. The room fell silent. Traoré added, You call me beneath you, because you've only seen Africa from the top of your privilege. Look from the ground for once, you'll realize we're the ones rising. Barron swallowed hard. His confidence was slipping. Traoré finished with a calm, devastating line. If I'm beneath you, why is your pride falling faster than my patience? The crowd murmured again, louder this time. Phones came out. Staffers whispered. Barron, suddenly aware of the spotlight burning on him, looked away, not up, not down, but away, because meeting Traoré's gaze now felt like standing in front of a storm. Barron's smirk faded for the first time. He hadn't expected Traoré to respond with that much precision, that much force, without even raising his voice. The room grew quieter as officials, aides, and journalists leaned in, sensing the shift in power like a gust of cold wind passing through the hall. Barron straightened his jacket, trying to recover his earlier arrogance. You think talking like that makes you powerful? He scoffed. This is America, not some little stage for your ego. Traoré didn't blink. Power isn't in the stage, he replied calmly. It's in the man who doesn't need one. A few reporters widened their eyes. One whispered, He's not afraid of him at all. Barron stepped forward, lowering his voice, trying to intimidate him. Do you know who my father is? Do you know what kind of influence my family has? Traoré tilted his head slightly. A man's strength isn't inherited, Barron, he said softly. It's proven. And so far, all I've seen from you is a loud entrance and shaking confidence. Barron's jaw clenched. His cheeks reddened. He wasn't used to being talked to like this, especially by someone the American establishment constantly tried to underestimate. You should watch your tone, Barron snapped. People like you don't get to speak to me this way. Traoré's eyes hardened, but his voice stayed calm. People like me, he repeated. If you knew what people like me survived, you wouldn't dare speak with that nose in the air. A sharp silence struck the room. Traoré took one step closer, not threatening, but commanding. You call me beneath you, yet you're the one who keeps looking up for approval, for validation. A real leader doesn't hide behind a last name. Barron froze. Traoré continued, voice steady. Respect isn't automatic. It isn't inherited. It isn't purchased. It's earned. And nothing about you suggests you've earned anything except an easy life and a fragile ego. Another shockwave rolled across the room. Phones recorded. Eyes widened. Assistants panicked silently. Barron tried to speak, but nothing came out. Traoré leaned back slightly, giving him space, but delivering one final cut. When you're ready to stand on your own, not on your father's name, you'll stop mistaking privilege for strength. The room erupted with whispers, and Barron's confidence collapsed behind his forced grin. Barron leaned back in his chair, still wearing that smug grin that had become his trademark. He thought he had Traoré cornered, humiliated, outmatched. But what he didn't understand, what he couldn't understand, was that Traoré didn't measure power the way he did. Barron measured it in entitlement. Traoré measured it in truth. You think this is funny? Traoré asked calmly, not raising his voice, not even adjusting his posture. His composure alone made the room colder. You mock me as if arrogance were strength. But arrogance only hides weakness. Barron scoffed, rolling his eyes. You're the one talking weakness. Look around. This is our country, our rules. You're just a man you can't ignore, Traoré finished for him. The room froze. Barron's smirk faltered. For the first time, he realized Traoré wasn't playing the game. He was rewriting it. Traoré leaned forward slightly, just enough for the cameras to zoom in. "Tell me something, Barron," he said, voice steady, almost gentle. "If I'm beneath you, why do my words reach you? Why do they shake you enough that you need to remind yourself you're above me?" Barron blinked. The comeback he thought he had vanished. Traoré continued, "You can look down on a mountain, but the mountain doesn't shrink. You only raise your head higher." A few staffers exchanged stunned looks. Even the journalists hesitated before typing, as if processing the punchline of a truth they hadn't seen coming. "Respect isn't inherited," Traoré said. "It's earned. And you," he pointed calmly at Barron, "haven't earned the right to speak of anyone's worth." Barron opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His confidence, so loud, so performative, was collapsing under the weight of a man who never needed to shout in order to dominate a room. Traoré finished the moment with a line that would explode across social media within minutes. "Look at me carefully, Barron. If you truly believed I was beneath you, you wouldn't be trying this hard to stand above me." Barron swallowed hard. The smirk was gone. The boy who tried to intimidate a soldier now looked like a teenager facing a reality he wasn't prepared for. Barron tried to recover his posture, raising his chin as if height alone could restore the authority he had just lost. But the tremble in his voice betrayed him before he spoke. "You're twisting things," he muttered, forcing a smirk. "I'm not looking up to you. I'm looking down at your failures." Traoré laughed, not loudly, but with the calm amusement of someone who had seen empires rise and collapse long before a privileged teenager tried to insult him. "Barron," he said softly, "a man who looks down doesn't tilt his head upward." The room reacted instantly. Advisors shifted in their seats. One reporter whispered, "He caught him again," another murmured, "This kid has no idea who he's speaking to." Barron's smirk broke for a fraction of a second, and that was enough. Traoré didn't need to raise his voice, truth spoken with calm confidence carried far more weight. "You want to stand above me," Traoré continued, "but you've never climbed anything yourself. Everything you stand on was handed to you. Power, wealth, protection, even your insults are inherited." Barron's cheeks flushed red. "You think you know me?" he snapped. "I know this," Traoré answered, leaning slightly forward. "Respect isn't measured by birth. It's measured by courage. And courage is the one thing you can't borrow from your father." The sting was immediate and sharp. The room froze. Cameras zoomed in as Barron swallowed hard, realizing he was losing control of a fight he never should have started. "You called me beneath you," Traoré said, his tone unshaken. "But here you are, struggling to stand on your own words." Barron opened his mouth but nothing came out. He blinked, once, twice, searching for the arrogance he usually hid behind, but it wasn't there anymore. Traoré had dismantled it piece by piece. Then Traoré finished with a final, razor-edged truth. "If you truly believed I was beneath you, Barron, you wouldn't be fighting so hard to keep yourself from falling." The silence that followed wasn't ordinary, it was the kind that becomes a headline. Barron tried to keep his smirk steady, but the room around him had already shifted. The energy no longer belonged to him. He was no longer the young prince of American arrogance, he was a teenager who had accidentally stepped into a battlefield far above his weight class. And Traoré? He saw everything. He saw the insecurity behind the smirk, the childish need to impress, the borrowed confidence of someone who had never truly fought for anything. "You know," Barron said, forcing a laugh, "people like you always talk big. But you're standing in our house. You should watch your tone." Traoré didn't move. He didn't even blink. "If your house shakes when someone speaks the truth," he replied calmly, "then it's not a house. It's a fragile illusion." Barron swallowed hard. Too visibly. Cameras caught it instantly. He tried to recover. "You think you're intimidating? I've met leaders twice your age who trembled less. Traoré leaned forward just an inch, his voice dropping to a level that felt like a cold wind settling on the back of Barron's neck. No, Barron, he said. You've met leaders who tremble more, they just hide it better. A wave of whispers cut through the room. Barron's jaw tightened. You're twisting everything, he muttered. You don't belong in these rooms. Traoré tilted his head. And yet, he replied, I'm the only one here who isn't shaking. Barron's smirk collapsed completely this time. His eyes flickered to the right, toward Secret Service, toward his father's advisors, toward anyone who could rescue him from the situation he thought he could dominate. Traoré continued, his voice still soft, still steady. Strength isn't inherited, Barron. Power isn't passed down like a family heirloom. You can't inherit a backbone. The room gasped. And when you mock people, Traoré added, make sure you're not looking up while doing it. Barron froze, as if someone had grabbed his entire sense of superiority and snapped it like a dry twig. He had nothing left to say. Traoré didn't humiliate him with volume. He humiliated him with accuracy. Come back when you've built something, Traoré finished. Not when you've borrowed someone else's shadow. Silence rippled, total, absolute silence. Barron Trump had come expecting to belittle a soldier. Instead, he had walked straight into a masterclass. Barron's forced confidence finally began to crack. The smirk he wore like a mask was slipping, replaced by a tightness in his jaw and a nervous flicker in his eyes. He hadn't expected resistance, let alone dominance. Especially not from a man who refused to bow, refused to play the game the way his family was used to. Traoré leaned forward slightly, elbows on the table, his voice low enough to be calm yet sharp enough to cut through Barron's pride. You keep looking up at me, he said, and you don't even realize it. Barron frowned. What's that supposed to mean? Traoré gestured lightly, not at Barron, but at the cameras, the audience, the atmosphere itself. You walk into rooms expecting the world to tilt beneath your feet, he continued. But today something shifted. And it's not the ground. It's your illusion of height. Barron stiffened. Reporters tilted their heads, sensing a moment that would explode online within seconds. Traoré didn't let the silence linger. You came here thinking status makes you strong, he said. But strength isn't inherited. It's earned. And you haven't earned a thing except the right to sit in your father's shadow. Barron's breathing grew shallow. His fingers tightened on the desk. Every defensive instinct he had burned hotter. But none found the courage to reach his tongue. Traoré continued, voice steady as stone. I've led men in war. You've led comments on social media. I speak for nations. You speak for your ego. And yet you think I'm beneath you? Barron opened his mouth to answer, but no words formed. Traoré didn't stop. You look down on Africa because it makes you feel tall. But here's the truth, the only reason you think you're above me is because you've never stood next to someone who isn't afraid of you. A visible shock rippled through the room. And today, Traoré added, you finally are. Barron swallowed hard. For the first time, he looked small. Not because Traoré diminished him, but because he'd never stood this close to someone who refused to shrink. Traoré ended the moment with a single, devastating line. You say I'm beneath you. Then why do you keep rising just to meet my eyes? Silence. Total. Heavy. Electric. Barron had no answer. Barron's smirk had faded hours ago, but pride wouldn't let him admit it. He sat rigidly in his chair now, legs no longer crossed with arrogance, fingers no longer tapping with mock confidence. The boy who entered the room as if he owned it was slowly realizing, he didn't even own the moment. Traoré stood in front of him, arms behind his back, posture straight, completely unfazed. There was no anger in his eyes, no desire to humiliate the young Trump. Only the calm authority of someone who had seen real battles, not social media fights. "Let me tell you something," Barron tried again, his voice cracking just enough to betray him. "People respect my family. They don't even know yours." Traoré nodded. "That's true," he said gently. "They don't know my family. They know my people." He leaned closer. "And one day, Barron, they will remember you for the man you became, not the name you borrowed." The room went still. Barron swallowed hard, and for the first time, the mask slipped. "You think you're better than us?" "No," Traoré replied. "But I do think you can be better than this." Barron blinked. The unexpected softness confused him more than any insult could have. Traoré straightened again. "Strength isn't measured by height, money, or last names. It's measured by what you stand for. And right now?" He pointed to the floor, low, quiet, devastating. "You're standing on fear. Not dignity." Barron's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. "You called me beneath you," Traoré continued. "Yet when everything got quiet, who was looking down, and who was looking up?" The young Trump looked away. Traoré delivered the final line with the softness of truth, and the sharpness of a blade. "Grow into a man your father doesn't have to defend, and one your people don't have to fear." The cameras captured Barron's silence, Traoré's calm, and the unmistakable moment a boy realized the world was much bigger, and much stronger, than the bubble he grew up in. Barron stood there frozen, the smirk finally wiped clean from his face. The room had shifted, everyone felt it. What began as a teenager's arrogant stunt had turned into a lesson he never expected to receive. Traoré didn't gloat, didn't raise his voice, didn't threaten. He simply existed in a strength Barron had never confronted in his sheltered, security-guarded world. "Do you know why leaders fall, Barron?" Traoré asked quietly, stepping closer, not aggressively, just decisively. "Not because of enemies. Because of ego. Because they believe the world must kneel just because they were born into comfort." Barron's throat tightened. I didn't." "You didn't think," Traoré finished for him. "Because no one ever made you." The cameras clicked rapidly, capturing every second. This was no longer just a confrontation, it was a dismantling of entitlement in real time. Traoré continued, "Power isn't your last name. Power is responsibility. Power is humility. Power is knowing when to listen instead of mocking." Barron's eyes dropped to the floor. Traoré straightened his jacket. "One day you may sit at a table of real leaders. And if you walk in with the attitude you showed today, they will eat you alive." A few reporters gasped softly. It was brutal, but it was truth. He added, "Respect is not inherited. It is earned. And right now, you have earned none." Barron swallowed hard. "So, what am I supposed to do?" Traoré finally gave a faint, almost fatherly nod. "Start by learning. Start by listening. Start by understanding the world beyond your bubble. Then maybe, you'll look a man in the eye without trembling." Barron looked up, and for the first time, there was no smirk, only realization. Traoré turned toward the door. "Remember this moment," he said. "It may be the first time you've ever seen what real strength looks like." As Traoré walked out, the room remained silent, stunned, humbled, transformed. And Barron Trump, who entered laughing, left with the weight of a lesson he would never forget.